Thank you to everyone joining us today. We're really glad you're here. Give it just one more minute. Want to make sure everyone can join in, and we'll get started. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome to our How to Celebrate Diversity at Gonzaga University webinar. We're really grateful you took the time today to join us. First things first, I just want to introduce myself. I'm one of our admission representatives. My name is Lindsay Spencer, she, her, hers pronouns, and I am our transfer admission counselor. I work with our transfer students primarily, but I also work with and help out a lot of first year students as well. I will let my colleague Sarah introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am another representative with the Office of Admission. I work as an admission counselor, especially with students in California, as well as Southeast Washington, but I'll be in here doing some housekeeping and keeping an eye on any questions that might be coming through.
Wonderful. I want to go over just a few housekeeping logistics for you. So you may have noticed this is a webinar format, so we cannot hear or see you. But if you have questions throughout this presentation, I'm going to encourage you to submit them to the Q&A function. We're going to be utilizing that at the end of the webinar to ask out loud any questions that students are submitting. We may not have time to address all questions, so if that is the case, please know that you're welcome to reach out to the Office of Admission, and we're happy to help in any way we can, but we're going to do our darndest to answer as many as we can. Besides that, I will also note that this webinar is recording, and we will post the recording within the next couple days onto our website so that you can access it. Okay, well, I want to let our campus partners introduce themselves. I'll pass the mic to Pam.
Hi there, my name is Pam Alvarado. My pronouns are she, her, hers, ella, and I serve as the director of the Payne Center for Leadership Development, and I also serve as the director of the Transfer Veteran Returning Adult Services and First Generation Office. So 2 offices within the Division of Student Affairs, and I'm happy to join today and share about the office a little bit more with you later on. Thanks for being here, y'all.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Bartlett, pronouns she and her. I am the director of the Lincoln LGBTQ Resource Center on campus. And I've been here about a year, so happy to share everything that we're doing with you guys.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Mancia. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm the director for the Unity Multicultural Education Center, or it's known as UMEC.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and start jumping into the presentations by our great campus partners. I'm going to fully pass the mic to Pam. Pam, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you're able to.
I don't know if my share went fully through.
I can see PowerPoint. It's not in
beautiful
mode, but we can see it perfectly.
How about now?
It's perfect.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Usually I see the box lit up, but today I'm not seeing that. So again, Pam Alvarado, I oversee Transfer Veterans, Returning Adult Services, and First Generation Office. And I'd like to share a little bit about our office with you, and of course, open to taking any questions at a later time. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next slide. We got some really nice pictures of our new space. So we are located within the Hemmingson building. We are located on the 2nd floor. And really, what is the office? TV-RAS. I know here at Gonzaga, we really like our acronyms. So transfer TV-RAS plus First Gen is something folks will definitely see here, but I'll break it down a little bit. So it really is an acronym. It stands for Transfer Veterans Returning Adult Services. And then the First Gen is First Generation generation college students. So this was a new addition that we really are very excited about a couple years ago in the Division of Student Affairs. We decided that we wanted to have a central location to serve and to better serve first generation college students here at Gonzaga University. So we were added to one of the department names. And so we've been excited to be able to offer a variety of different services and resources to all students within these demographics and populations. So just wanted to show the cool picture. Now we'll move along to the next slide to tell you a little bit about our mission of TVRAS First Gen. And so it really is an office. It looks just like the picture is showing you there. We have a soft seating area. You might see a computer there with a nice giant hand sanitizer bottle and then some lockers towards the back of the room. And so it really is a central point of information and resources. We would like to make sure students come in, even if it's for a question. They might not know exactly what we're about, but we like to think that we are a central point where they can come, ask their questions. The different students from the different populations that we serve in this office might face unique challenges. And so we also want to make sure that we are there to listen and to also refer out and maybe have them meet one of the awesome colleagues on this call, or perhaps another awesome colleague or another office that they might be interested in. We also want to make sure that we're supporting students as they transition. Sometimes it's transitioning to a new campus, right? Sometimes it's transitioning to civilian life. And so that whatever the transition is, we hope that we can provide support. We can connect them to services that are available, and also a place where they can just connect with others. And so sometimes the office is really busy, and that's when we get really excited. And sometimes it's one student and we're also excited to see them. We have some snacks and building community and a TV where they can watch a show or whatnot and build community as they're there. But that's really the mission in those 5 different bullet points on this screen. So we do have a variety of different programs and also events. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about those. At the beginning of the semester and throughout the semesters, we like to have breakfast socials. They might not be something extremely fancy, but it might be an opportunity for someone to have either a fancy breakfast or not that fancy. They might just want to enjoy a donut, a little bit of coffee, and have some conversation with someone that they have never met. And it's the beautiful thing about these breakfast socials is that they happen typically right before classes, so really early in the morning. And so some classes are happening at that time, but not all. And so they can stop by, grab a quick donut or a breakfast burrito and connect with someone new. They're not really structured. That's why we call them social. So they can really just be in community. Hey, how's it going? Grab a snack, grab a burrito, grab a donut, and just get to know other folks. We also have our luncheons. Our luncheons are a little bit more structured. We really try to bring in a campus partner or campus partners to share with the students that are attending the luncheon. So we might bring someone from, the academic side of the house or someone from the student affairs side of the house so that they can share with the students about their department and the different resources and offerings that their department offers. In addition to that, you may notice, you may not, based on what I'll share, that October and November can be really popular in the office. We have Veterans Day programming that could be various things happening in November, the week, during the day, and so on. We also have the National First Gen Day celebration, and that was an add-on that has made me feel very excited. I myself am a first generation college graduate, and so I really get excited when I get to connect with other first gen students and colleagues. And so that is a celebration that we started a couple years ago, where we have some community building. We will have a meal, and then we will have opportunities for folks to connect. And then sometimes they get a cool First Gen Zag shirt or a sticker. And so we try to incorporate some type of a fun giveaway also for the community that's attending. And of course, also sharing with you today that about 14% of Zags identify as first generation college students. You might wonder, hey, Pam, how does Gonzaga define that? Here in the office, the way we define it is if a parent has not obtained a bachelor's degree, the student would be considered a first generation college student. And so there is opportunity. We do have a community here, and we're excited to continue to program with students and also in connection with and collaboration with other offices. And so we are looking forward to our celebration this year again. And then also we have the National Transfer Week, which does happen. Some campuses will be celebrating in the next 10 days. Some of them will be celebrating in the next 20 days. So typically the 3rd week of August. So we'll be looking at the National Transfer Week and celebrating students who are also transferring or have transferred to Gonzaga. So that's a little bit about the program. programming and events that we offer. In addition to that, sometimes we have fun line dancing. So sometimes we also have the evening socials. So if you're into line dancing, you might want to be involved with TV Raz First Gen, or we might, paint some pumpkins or check out a baseball game in the community. So those are some of the fun ways that folks can do this and build community in TV Raz First Gen. My last slide here, folks, is around resources. So we do acknowledge that sometimes students do bring, backpacks, books, and they might need a place to put them. So not maybe all the populations that are being served by the office might want to use a locker, but we have some pretty cool lockers. Folks can check out a key and hang on to their key during the semester and check it out again the following semester if needed. So we have numbered lockers, and folks can check out a locker, put their belongings, and then come back towards the end of the day or whenever they want to do that. And again, meeting other ZAGs in the office is also some way of shared knowledge, also a resource, and participating in events is another great way to continue to build resources and seeing what's available here at Gonzaga. So those were the slides that I have prepared. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share, and I think we'll continue this party.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pam. Jamie, do you have slides to share? Great.
I do.
Perfect.
We'll see how successful I am. Okay, so hopefully you see slides.
Yep, we can see them.
All righty. Hello, everyone. As I mentioned, I'm the director of the LGBTQ Resource Center. And if you're like I probably was coming into Gonzaga, you might say a what center at what university? And I like to really tell folks that the Gonzaga community has been very highly supportive of the LGBTQ community for a long time. So our center was founded in 2004. So we're actually coming up on our 20th anniversary next year. And we were the first Jesuit university to have a resource center dedicated to queer students. Collectively, we're a hub for anyone that needs information about gender identities, expressions, sexual orientation. You can see the bottom picture is where we're at today. We're also on the second floor of Hemmingson. It kind of works out conveniently that Pam presented and then Jesse's after me, because quite literally my office is sandwiched in between both of their offices on the same floor. So that sort of works out nicely. You can see in the top picture, that was the oldest picture I have of our center, which was when we were in the Unity House basement, a one little room there. And now we actually just doubled in size in Hemmingson, front and center, right across from the Bulldog restaurant. So we're easily accessible for students to find us, come and hang out. A little bit about what we do. Just to give you some more context about what it's like having a queer center at a Jesuit university. So there are 28 Jesuit universities in the United States, and probably about 6 of them have dedicated centers, just to give you some context on that. Holistically, the Jesuit sort of institutions have been pretty supportive of our community. We know that's not always the case at Catholic universities, and it's a work in progress, but I'll tell you that Gonzaga has really been a leader in this space for Jesuit universities. In 2022, we worked to get our Campus Pride Index rating of 4 out of 5 stars, and actually we're going to resubmit here in the next year to up that score, because we've made some improvements. If you're not familiar, and if this is an issue or a question that you're having as you're exploring universities, Campus Pride rates and ranks all universities across the United States on their accessibility and friendliness towards the LGBTQ plus community. So we're doing pretty well, and there's a lot of aspects that we've been able to address when we first did that assessment to help improve our score. So a little bit about what we do as a center. Besides being an actual physical location that you can spend time in and hang out and connect with students, we do a lot of programming throughout the year. Some of it's regular program that we do every year. So for instance, Lavender Mass, we actually have coming up next week, and that is a mass dedicated to the community that happens on campus, and that happens every year. We have a variety of film and speaker series that occur throughout the term, supported sometimes by different departments or organizations, depending on what we're focused on. This year, we're doing a queer cinema series. So we're showing some sort of classic films related to the community so that students of a younger generation can be familiar with those. We have other regular programming such as Out to Lunch with Allies, which is where any campus affiliate can come to lunch on us and learn about a topic, usually presented by some of our student staff. Out at GU is specifically a lunch social for faculty and staff members who are part of the community. And then every year we also have Lavender graduation, where we have an honoring of our LGBTQ plus students as they're moving on from Gonzaga. We have a new program that we're actually just piloting this year. Students are really excited about it. It's a cohort model. It's called SPEAR, which stands for Skills for Personal Empowerment, Advocacy, and Resilience. You can kind of see the bullet points here, but essentially what the cohort is signing up to participate in is programming that's centered around kind of toughening ourselves up both mentally and physically. So sort of developing both, the holistic person to kind of better prepare our students, particularly our students in the LGBTQ plus community, who we know are going to face some unique challenges out in the world. And so students are pretty pumped about this program. I think they're more pumped about the self-defense side of it, but there's also some mental resiliency, emotional regulation, things like that, that are going to be a part of this program. So that's actually launching this week, and everyone's pretty excited about that new program. We also do what's called SAGE training. A lot of institutions often call this safe zone training. This is geared a lot more towards faculty and staff, but some student cohorts take it as well. But essentially, SAGE training is offered to just keep our faculty and staff up to speed on where we're at when it comes to language around the community. There's a lot of scenario-based training that happens in there so that our faculty and staff can just be more supportive of the community. So we're really trying to integrate that into all of our general faculty and staff training, new faculty and staff orientations, things of that nature, so that our professors and the folks that are providing services to students can just have better language around how they're interacting with the community. So this has been a program that we've had for a number of years to help keep faculty and staff prepared. Just two more slides here, I think. So, get involved. I can answer questions at the end when we get to that point, but, you're welcome to stop in and hang out. If you come visit campus, we're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We hire 4 students every year to work in the center and to get involved in a variety of our events. And please check out our social media. All of our social media channels, I think we have all of them, are GU LGBTQ. So you can kind of keep up to date on what we're actively doing on campus and see what we have going on. And like I said, if you find yourself in Hemmingson on the 2nd floor, pop in and say hi. This is our new expanded view on campus. It's pretty cozy. Similar to what Pam said, we have a lot of fun soft seating. It's a great place to connect with the community and get to know folks on campus. So I will end it there until you guys have some questions, and I will pass the mic over to Jesse. If he's there. He is.
Hello, everybody. And I cannot find my slide deck. Can y'all see the slide deck?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. So hi, my name again is Jesse Mancia, and the director for Unity Multicultural Education Center. And as Jamie mentioned, we are on the 2nd floor of Hemmingson. Now, the purpose for the Multicultural Center, or
Hey,
UMEC,
Jesse,
yes.
sorry to interrupt, but I'm seeing your presenter view, not the presentation view. Just
Ooh.
wanted to give you heads up on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right now. What about now?
Looks perfect.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. So as I was mentioning, so thanks again, Pam and Jamie. The purpose for the Multicultural Center is for us to advocate in terms for underrepresented students, in provide an opportunity for them to kind of have a home away from home in the center. The students come in and utilize the space, whether that's a study space or just a space in order for them to hang out. There are 3 different areas that we focus on. That's more on mentoring, social justice programming, and then intercultural development. Within the mentoring component, we do offer a summer bridge program. It's about 3 days, and it's usually typically on the last edge of the last orientation session that'll come in. So it'll be tied in and connected to the last orientation to once you come into Gonzaga. But the opportunity in itself not only connects and engages the students, but what it really does is provides the opportunity for the students to connect and engage, to know those resources that they're going to utilize, and also understand and know where their classes are before the rest of the demographics or before the rest of the students come in onto campus, and then we gradually emerge them into it as then they're here within a cohort of 40 to 60 students, and then they're in a smaller or a slightly larger cohort with the orientation, about 200 students, and then they're within the full-on welcome week, and that'll be the all incoming students. So again, we are purposely gradually introducing these students into Gonzaga in order for them to really feel acclimated into the institution. Second part is going to be here within the social justice programming. We create different types of programming as whether if that's art and activism. We're even looking at activism in athletics and bringing in somebody in to talk about not only of how that activism plays in athletics, as Gonzaga is very much a D1 institution, and obviously we're a good basketball team. But we bring in, as Julian here, as you can see on that image, we bring in alumni and connect with alumni as well. Whether there's a movie screening this year, we're going to be screening the movie Master in here within the late October. And then again, also have a discussion. So there's just multiple programs that not only our office hosts, but also our students help out with these different programs that we host. Then we have intercultural development. The large basis here is the intergroup dialogue, and then also the social justice peer educators. The social justice peer educators are actually work in collaboration with our housing department, where they're able to go in and kind of work with the RAs if there's anything to do DEI and types of programming within the resident halls, and working with the RAs, working with the RHDs, of seeing what is needed in the resident halls. But the students are also creating different passive programming around campus. This year, they're really looking at working within Foley Library, where they're discussing and kind of promoting the Heritage Months, and not only showcasing different books and resources about the authors within those demographics, but making it more of a culturally awareness within that space. So there's different opportunities. They also work with GSBA in order for them to create the sustained dialogue or the courageous conversations with the students, where they select a topic and have this conversation, and they're the ones that facilitate the dialogue there on campus with all the students. So it is very much peer-to-peer type of programming, where they go through a training, and it's about 6 social justice peer educators throughout the here within UMEC. One thing that I like to highlight here, and I did not mention, was the Unity Scholar Program. that encompasses and kind of works with all three different departments or three different areas. While it's more or less housed within the mentoring aspect, as it starts with Bridge, and then we're also looking at a holistic approach in order for the students to engage with them. They're going to be enrolled in a COM 100 class, or the Communication Studies course that is necessary in order for you to graduate with from Gonzaga. But there's a course that the Unity scholars and the Bridge students will be part of that tie into intergroup dialogue. And I myself will be teaching a course, and then other staff within UMEC will more than likely be teaching this particular course, so that way we're not only providing that material from the academic side, but also for the students to navigate and to utilize the tool of intergroup dialogue. If my slide will go, there we go. And they kept going. Of course it would. So then this slide here, if you want to actually use that QR code, that'll subscribe you to the UMEC newsletter. There's actually going to one that's coming out tomorrow. It comes out every Friday. The UMEC newsletter provides kind of programming, things that are happening within, not only within UMEC, but also within campus. As you can see, Soup for the Soul is October 6th. That's tomorrow. Soup for the Soul is just an opportunity where anyone can come in and have a bowl of soup and kind of just be in community in this space in the Unity Multicultural Education Center. But this kind of gives you a little breakout in terms of like what kind of programming we're doing this academic year, in kind of at a glance. But please feel free to use that QR code, and that way you can sign up for the newsletter and already be receiving the material that we're going to be working on throughout the academic year and specifically through that week. This is an image in terms of like all of our pro staff. Currently we're vacant within the mentoring program manager, but we have Terry for the social justice program manager, and then SR is our intercultural development, but also the assistant director for UMEC, and then Marjan as our office manager. I do want to kind of touch base within the cultural organizations, the cultural clubs. This is not an exhaustive list. These are just more or less just a list on here. And even on this one, it's not even updated or felt here in terms of Jewish Bulldogs. They're actually a Jewish student union. And again, they're part of that cultural club, Asian American Union. ALAS isn't on here, which is Association for Latin American Students. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but again, it gives you a glimpse of what particular organizations are available. And UAC or UACC is an organization that works alongside not only with UMEC, the Office of Inclusive Excellence, but also with Center for Student Involvement and GSBA, in order for them to create different programming and provide different funding for them to create their festivals. As during the fall semester or either the spring semester, there's for the most part, most of these cultural orgs, whether independently or combined, create different programs, and specifically a festival where they celebrate their heritage and want to display that to the community, where everyone is welcome. And this is just the last slide, and here's where Jamie had mentioned where we're right next to each other, where we literally are. We're just separated here by this bench that's kind of hidden by this graphic, but we are right next to each other in the space. So please feel free to join us at any time, and I will open it to questions and leave it to throw it back to Lindsay for anything else.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to quick share my screen just to put some of our resources on the screen for students. We've gotten some great questions, so I'm going to start going through those, but students, please know that you're welcome to keep submitting them. We'll get to as many as we can tonight. Give me just a moment. Perfect. Team, can we see the list of Gonzaga resources on the screen? Cool, thank you. Great. Well, we have some great questions, and campus partners, feel free to jump in to answer as you see fit. But one of the questions that we received was, what does diversity look like in Spokane?
Who wants to jump in first?
I mean, I think it depends in terms, right, of what your definition of diversity is, right? I think when you're thinking of diversity, you're thinking probably more within your cultural or ethnic identities. Within that, I'm here within a year. While it is very much in terms polarized within the areas here within Spokane, but within Gonzaga, I will say that the students definitely identify themselves and find themselves their particular cultural and their people, I guess you would say. Whether if that is within their identities, within their queer identities, whether if that's within their own ethnic identity, or whether if that's within their veteran identity. Again, I'm speaking to that, but I think Jamie and Pam can definitely talk a little bit more within those specific ones. But is it hard in order for you to find that? I mean, I think if you come to UMEC, it's not going to be hard. In terms within within Spokane overall, I think that's just a different compass in terms of where you are. But I think that there definitely is community, and there's different resources available that the community is also more than willing to engage, not only with the student organizations, but also with our offices as well.
Yeah, and I'll say, so I've lived now in Spokane for 2 years, and I'm originally from California. So, it's a perspective thing, which I think Jesse was touching on, that we have some students who come from really diverse environments in a lot of ways, and so sometimes Spokane feels a little bit of a culture shock by its lack of diversity for them. But then we have a lot of students who come from more rural environments. They're coming from Montana. They're coming from sort of the surrounding areas, and Spokane is the big city. And so it depends. It's very much a perspective thing. I will say I think Spokane as a whole, because if you're nervous about coming here, I think it's a fair question. When I looked at a map and actually saw where Spokane was located, I thought, oh wow, that's really close to Idaho, and I thought it was closer to Seattle, right? And so I was a little nervous about that coming in. But I think the demographics in a lot of ways of Spokane are changing. But it's kind of this slow, messy change that's happening. So it's an interesting community. I find it slightly fascinating. So it's definitely a perspective question, depending on where you're coming from.
I would definitely agree with what my colleagues are saying. I've been here in Spokane since 2019. So even my personal journey of journeying Gonzaga, during a pandemic, not really sure if we're really post-pandemic just yet. And so it really has been a little bit more different. I would say I've lived in major cities myself. Maybe other colleagues in this space have also lived in other major cities. So it definitely is a perspective thing. One of the things that I do find is I think about different food, different things. Like I think of, you know, birria tacos and how excited students have been when we've catered birria because it reminds them of home. And a lot of students from California were saying that, or a lot of other students from other areas, not just California. So I really think it is a perspective, but I think folks are able to find their community here at GU. And that's also what is exciting about this work, because sometimes if they are maybe having a little bit of a challenge with that, they can stop by any of the 3 centers or other centers and connect with other students and have their own circle of people and, go and experience a new restaurant, or, invite each other to go home for a holiday or a weekend.
Thank you, colleagues. The next question is kind of a big one, and it is, in what ways does Gonzaga advocate for social justice?
I feel like that question would probably go to me, but I feel like Jamie and Pam, please feel free to chime in as well. I think that it depends in terms of how you're looking at it within encompassing. I think within the mission, we're definitely looking at it of advocating social justice in that aspect. Whether we're looking at it in terms of the Ignatian and the Ignatian spirituality and looking as far as like moving that direction. But I also think in terms of social justice and the DEI framework, And then what we do within the social justice programming pillar within UMEC, we try to provide different resources, different programs for students to really engage. What I was mentioning in terms of the social justice in the mission, that is also integrated within the curriculum in terms for each course in order for the faculty to really look at. So for example, within my course that I'm teaching, the COM 100, we integrate in terms of looking at what that social justice aspect looks like. So the material that you're working on is really advocating and more or less informing you and having the dialogue around social justice issues. So it's not hiding it away. I will say that this institution, while it is a Catholic and holistic institution, it is leaning more towards the liberal side in terms of having that dialogue and doesn't necessarily shy away. And I say that also knowing that the Jesuits are very much of the front lines and wanting to engage in that. And I think that that's where we're striving for in terms of Gonzaga is leaning in and putting ourselves into the front line and not shying away from these dialogues. A prime example will be in terms of a collective opportunity where actually the three of our offices, as well as additional offices of including Office of Sustainability, Mission and Ministry, or University Mission. We're all working together and actually going to the Ignatian Family Teach-In in Washington, D.C., where we bring and take students for them to learn about advocacy. There's also courses in terms about advocacy in terms for you to take if you're wanting to do it, and the different instructors in that regard. But I feel like I started straying, going a different direction there. But please, Pam or Jamie, please feel free to add.
No, I definitely paused so that Jesse would answer that first because he should. But I will comment and say, as someone who has always worked at state secular institutions, this is my first go being on staff at a Jesuit or faith-based university. I have been continually impressed with sort of the adherence to that social justice mission that you don't experience very often anywhere else. And to the point that I feel like our students become so well trained in it that they keep us on task. And I'll give a good example. Just yesterday, there was an issue with another university's hiring practices of the LGBTQ plus community. And a student who I don't interact with that much, who's in UMEC, stopped me and said, "What are you guys going to do about this?" And I was like, "You're right. We should put together some posts and get a commentary on it." And I adore that. It can be tiring, but I love that our students become such amazing advocates for justice that they stop us, who theoretically are the ones that are supposed to be leading them, and go, "You need to be doing a little bit better here," and make sure that we're doing our job as well, representing the institution as social justice advocates. So that's sort of my little tidbit as someone who also feels like I'm continuously learning in my job. I have yet to get that social post out, but it's on its way. What else we got?
I was also going to share a little bit, if
Okay.
that's okay.
Yeah, please.
I was going to think about just thinking about like advocating for social justice and how do we do it here at GU. I think many of our programs, because of our Catholic Jesuit humanistic mission, I think about our reflection. I think about our programming and how many of us really strive, I would say, if not all, to intentionally pause at the beginning of programming, acknowledge and have a point of reflection, also acknowledging our land. And so I think that is something that is very important to here at Gonzaga University. We acknowledge that we're on tribal land. We acknowledge that we need to pause and be folks who are not just living up to the mission, but really intentionally, how are we doing that in our programming? So that's something that I have experienced here. This is my 5th academic here at GU, as I say. I also think about what's happening inside the classroom and how are we taking what's happening inside the classroom and using that outside the classroom within our offices, within student affairs. I think of our campus partners. And I also like to, add in funding. I think really an institution does value certain areas, right? When we're putting funding monies, when we have some, fabulous donors supporting initiatives, And so I also think of that's a way of showing our advocacy, not only money, but also the intentionality of who are we partnering with in the community and how are we going into the community, providing experiences, but also pausing and asking, how do we collaborate in an intentional way, whether instead of just arriving and making an assumption that that's maybe what a community or what an organization needs. And lastly, I will say President McCullough is our, wonderful president who also values and so puts out different communication and shares that with the campus community, in addition to our vice provost, Dr. Porterfield, who also values that. And so I think of our programming and how it's supported and also the populations in our areas. So I'd say that's what I just had to add on that.
Thanks, team. That was a great answer. Jamie, I think this question is maybe going to be geared more towards you. And it's kind of related to what we've been talking about, but asking about what it's like to be an LGBTQ plus student at a Catholic institution. And I will say this question doesn't necessarily specify whether the student has a faith or doesn't have a faith. So maybe speaking to both of those identities could be helpful.
Yeah, it's a good question. And like I said, I was very curious about this job coming in because I had a lot of assumptions about Gonzaga being a Catholic institution and how it actually does support students. And I will tell you, in my interview process, I even asked, like, is this a job where I get to actually do stuff, or is it a figurehead position where you're pretending to support? And my now boss said, no, we want you to move the needle and do more and do stuff. And so while I'm not an alum, so I can't actually say what it's like to be a queer student on campus, I do talk to my students daily. And I would say, nowhere is perfect. So I think all of our LGBTQ students are experiencing unique challenges in higher ed. And I think that happens across the board, including at Gonzaga. And so, like I said, my role is making sure faculty and staff are better educated, because I think a lot of times the negative experiences students encounter come from more ignorance than it comes from some nefarious, anti-LGBTQ ideal, right? So I think that's where a lot of any negative experiences actually land, and it's my job literally to make sure that those stop happening. I would say in general, our students have a pretty positive experience overall. I think we're working on programming to make that better. I think there's a lot of support out there, not just our center itself, but Jesse had put up, the cultural clubs, and one of those clubs is QSU, which has been around in some iteration for a long time. And there are a lot of other types of, there's a ridiculous number of clubs. I wouldn't even guess at how many there actually are, but I found a lot of those clubs are very friendly to different identities across the board. And so students find a lot of support for that in there. And let's see what else, maybe Jesse could actually chime in on the faith-based aspect, but, I think that a lot of students who are part of the queer community and come to Gonzaga struggling with how to reconcile, their faith as well as being at the institution can be difficult. And I think they find a space at Gonzaga that's actually almost safer, in that it's a place that folks can have really hard conversations around faith, with sort of supportive, campus mission and ministry has been very supportive. They conduct our Lavender Mass, and, really try to support our students in that way. So I don't know if you want to chime in a little bit more. And for context, the reason I'm handing it off is, while I did grow up Catholic, it's not something I associate personally with my identity right now. And so I find it a little tricky for me to speak to that aspect of it here in full transparency.
Thanks, Jamie. And I also, in terms for myself, I identify myself as a gay man. So even working within Gonzaga, and the intersectionalities that I have, the identities, working there, and I think that in itself speaks for itself too, as Jamie had mentioned, of how the institution is very much open and willing to do it, but we're also modeling it for the students, right? And I think that speaks also to it. Sorry if you can hear my dog. Um, and the other piece to in terms of the faith, yes, students do sometimes have a hard time of navigating that space of like where the Catholic faith is, with being a queer at the same time of like where and for them to dissect it themselves and reflect and pause. Um, but the thing is that Gonzaga provides that opportunity for them to do that. It provides the space. We have the resources for the students. It's just a matter of the students really wanting to engage and whether, if they whether go to the Office of Mission and Ministry, whether if they go to the Lincoln LGBT Resource Center, or whether if they go to St. Al's, or whether if they go within UMEC, it is something in terms where we're always open in order for the students to engage with us, and we will provide those resources and navigate them. With that, even whether if that's secure personalis in terms for the students if they need additional support for whatever reason that might be. Again, we have all the resources available for the students if they need it.
And I'm not sure, oh yeah, I'm not sure if the typed question is directed towards anyone in particular. As far as, so the question that was typed in here was about whether or not we work with St. Al's and the clergy. So I would say we don't specifically in that way, but for instance, I mentioned Lavender Mass. So we usually reach out to one of the Jesuits to conduct that Mass. And so a number of them volunteer, each year to do it. But as far as working directly with St. Al's, that's just not typically what we work with. So we'll work much more often with campus mission and ministry as an office when it comes to kind of integrating the queer community with, and questions about faith and stuff.
Yeah, and within UMEC and some of the cultural orgs, and also partnering with Mission and Ministry, we have actually asked a couple of, well, two Jesuits within St. Al's to help out with the celebration of the martyrs, in terms with from El Salvador. And then we're also, I think there's going to be a mass for Our Lady of Guadalupe. So again, we're asking the Spanish speaking Jesuits in order for them to preside the mass on the campus chapel. So again, it is more of connecting and bridging those gaps, not only with the cultural orgs, but also within mission ministry. So again, there is definitely a connection to it. It is not as formal, but there definitely is as the parish is within campus.
Okay. I know we're getting closer to time. We did get a question about events, specifically events put on by our cultural clubs and events to help students transition when they first get to Gonzaga. Would y'all be able to speak to that?
Oh boy, we have so many events. We almost have too many events. Not that I don't love them, but I will say that probably every night of the week there is something, and you can almost count on being fed at most of them. Because that is definitely a thing Gonzaga likes to do, is to feed everybody. I mean, Jesse's definitely more integrated with the cultural events, but having gone to them and been a parts of different ones, there is a lot of community building. And right when you get to campus, there are a number of welcome back events that occur for folks to start to find the community they want to jump into. So whether that's clubs, sports, different offices to get a job at, different offices to volunteer in. I think the club fair was maybe 2 weeks ago, could have been maybe 3 weeks. I don't know. Time is a mystery, but and literally an entire block of Gonzaga is just tables of clubs. And I would say the cultural clubs were probably the most popular and the loudest, which I loved. And so they're really trying to pull folks in. QSU, as I mentioned, the Queer Student Union does a ton of events. They have a Halloween party coming up that, you know, is usually pretty great. So that's such a fun way to get involved for everybody to come too. Like we like to say that we allow straight people in the center, and all the cultural clubs like to allow other folks to experience their culture. So it's a really cool way to get to know different communities on campus.
Yeah, I mean, it's Jamie just kind of adding on more to what Jamie was saying in terms of programs specifically for before classes start and for the semester starts. As I mentioned, we have the Bridge program where it provides the opportunity for either in terms of if you have these identities, whether if you're first gen, queer, or BIPOC, you're able to, we welcome you to come to participate in the program where again, you're connected with a peer mentor, and throughout the academic year, you'll be provided on group counseling through it. You're going to be connected in terms with the faculty in terms of faculty advising during lunch area, so you'll be able to engage with faculty. You're going to be able to kind of sense ownership of campus and really build a sense of community before the semester even starts. And that's even before you come in and go into your orientation. So again, you're already building that community. So then that way, whenever you come in and you can see it even this semester and every semester there are only a year in too, but from last semester, I could also see the Bridge students coming in and always being connected with each other, and they kind of stay connected. And that's definitely a way for them to identify and have that shared experience. But there are, again, as Jamie had mentioned, the cultural orgs. Our offices also host different opportunities. I think this semester, we collaboratively hosted something at the same time that the club fair was going on. So again, not only the offices that that provide these resources are also again engaging and being intentional of when you're going to be available to come and visit to showcase what our offices provide within the programming.
I also wanted to jump in on the sharing at the beginning of the academic year. So welcome weekend. In the past, we've had affinity socials. And so that's also an opportunity for folks to connect. I think my colleagues, yes, have shared other opportunities as well, but I know that's something that's been fun. It's, some tabling and affinity spaces. And I know that's also where like the first gen community has been able to come together and meet others if they have not participated in something else or in a program like Bridge. So yeah, there's also opportunities if they're not able to participate in other experiences to connect with other folks.
Wonderful. Thank you, colleagues, so much for answering those questions. Students, again, please feel free to reach out to the Office of Admission if any other questions haven't been answered or new ones have arisen. Sarah and I have a couple final announcements before we let everyone go today. And the first is that we do have some additional webinars coming up. If you're interested, we have a financial aid centered one on October 10th, a community centered one on the 17th, an honors program related one on the 19th, and then Accessing Gonzaga, specifically support for first year students from Washington on November 1st. And then November 29th, the FAFSA has been undergoing some changes this year. So we're having a webinar specifically geared towards understanding the new FAFSA. You can register at gonzaga.edu/virtual Gonzaga. Okay. And then I know we've